in academia, we have this running joke about the reviewer number 2. So in this room filled with academics, I'm sure some of you are familiar with this concept and have even experienced a reviewer number 2 firsthand. But for those of you who are not familiar with this concept, the reviewer number 2 is a peer, anonymous, who is given the opportunity to review a piece of academic writing or proposed research. Process which is intended to provide constructive feedback and ensure research quality. However, usually there are up to 3 reviewers, and at least one of them utilizes this opportunity to provide smug, harsh, or demeaning commentary, which really feels like it's aimed more at hurting the author's feelings over offering true instruction. So early on in my graduate career, I had a reviewer number 2 who criticized my use of the word fruit to describe my system of research, which is in the fruit rod of winterberry, which I thought was a little confusing, but I kind of took this as an opportunity and I said, okay, I can provide a little bit more information about my host at the beginning of my proposal, and then I moved on with my day. But this comment really stuck with me because as I continued on in this field, what I began to realize was that this comment had underlying meaning. And the reviewer was saying that if he had known from the beginning of my proposal that I was dealing with an ornamental plant, this would detract from the merit of my research. And this by no means is an isolated incident, and it really exemplifies this commonly held perspective that ornamental plants are less important than those grown for consumption. And because of this perspective, they face far greater scrutiny in the plant health industry because society as a whole sees them as options rather than a necessity. So my name is Isabel Emanuel, and again, I'm researching ornamental plants in the PhD program at Ohio State University, and my research focuses on a fungal pathogen in winterberry. But today, instead of talking to you about my pathogen and my disease complex and things like that, I want to talk about something that influences my research every day, especially when I'm writing grants and trying to communicate my research, which is that ornamental plants do have a significance. When I say ornamental plants, what am I talking about? Ornamental plants are those used for display purposes, mostly because they're attractive. The green industry as a whole is worth $160 billion, and only $12 billion of that total is from the sale and production of floriculture or flowering and nursery crops, decorative trees and shrubs. And then when you look at individual crops within this total, that's an even smaller value compared to the $160 billion green industry. But something that a lot of people don't consider are the significance that these plants hold beyond just looking pretty. And a lot of the ways that ornamental plants affect our lives every day are very basic. So we're going to start from the very top, air quality. According to NASA, up to 32% of the world's land is covered in green spaces, and it's commonly known that the leaves of these plants can uptake carbon dioxide from the air and release oxygen, a process which allows us to breathe. And in addition to improving outdoor air quality, ornamental plants have been used in indoor spaces to sustainably recycle these oxygen loads in workplaces and classrooms without the use of an energy-expensive ventilation system. Moving on to biodiversity and pollinator health. It's clear in any outdoor garden or green space that the abundant and plentiful supply of ornamental plants are incredibly important for the health and well-being of pollinator species and birds. And then finally, moving on to soil health. The roots of these plants are able to mitigate the negative effects of soil erosion, and select ornamental plants are also able to undergo a process called phytoremediation, where the roots of these plants can uptake, metabolize, and assimilate hazardous chemicals found in the soil, which allows this soil to then be used to safely grow crops and also filter water that we end up using. So alone, all of these ecological benefits, I think, are important. But the last point that I really want to enforce today are the immense mental health benefits that ornamental plants have on humans. So multiple studies have shown that proximity of residences to green spaces, exposure of employees to cut flowers in the workplace, and even posters of naturescapes hung in the recovery suites of hospitals have resulted in decreased stress, anxiety, and depression, attention deficit recovery, increased creativity and memory, decreased effects of dementia, mitigation of PTSD, enhanced productivity, and improved self-esteem. It's a lot. But for a more tangible example of this, children, when given the opportunity to take a 10 to 15-minute walk in either a naturescape or an urban landscape, and then given a comprehensive exam, showed significant cognitive enhancement following the exposure to the nature setting. And all of these responses can be encompassed within something called the stress recovery theory, which details the bodily response when humans are immersed in nature. And these include decreases in stress and anxiety, decreased heart rate and lower variability of heart rate, decreased concentrations of cortisol, skin conductance recovery, and positive changes in nerve activity. Following the COVID-19 pandemic, the world has faced a mental health crisis. We have increased reports of depression in children. We have increased cases of mental health disorders related to stress, anxiety, and depression. So how do we start utilizing these mental health benefits of ornamental plants in order to improve our lives? I want to introduce a probably new term to you, biophilia, which describes the human's innate desire to connect with nature and other living things. And biophilic design is a growing area of interest in interior design, and it incorporates green walls, potted plants, things of this nature into workspaces, living spaces, and even the architecture of cities. And these changes have resulted in, again, improved indoor air quality sustainably by reducing CO2 levels, but also by reducing airborne particulates and relative humidity. And biophilic design changes implemented in workplaces have resulted in significant reports of increased productivity and willingness to work. And some of these designs can be incredibly elaborate, like the use of these green walls that I've shown, but these benefits that I'm describing can be seen with really small changes, such as adding a potted plant by your window or adding cut flowers to your living space. So if you remember at the beginning of my talk, I mentioned that ornamental plants make up a relatively small amount of the green industry revenue as a whole. But why should this alone mean that they're less important? I think now more than ever, we as a society need to be mindful about shifting this mindset away from a constant capitalistically driven mentality and start also prioritizing mental health and overall quality of life. And with this in mind, ornamental plants should be seen as a necessity rather than a luxury. And it's my hope that after today, you can start seeing how ornamental plants impact your life every day, appreciating what they do for us, and being more mindful about how you can utilize the mental health benefits of ornamental plants to improve your life and the lives of those around you. Thank you.